story of Abraham Lincoln. Hello, history fans, and welcome back to Historic Figures. Today, we're embarking on an even deeper dive into the life of a man who transcended the title of president, a man whose soul carried the weight of a nation's tearing apart. Abraham Lincoln. We're going beyond his famous decisions to explore the personal sorrow, the moral conflict, and the strategic genius that made him arguably the most crucial leader in American history. Get ready. Let's spend 20 minutes understanding the profound story of the martyr of unity, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln's story begins in a humble log cabin in Kentucky in 1809. He was the son of Thomas Lincoln and Nancy Hanks, raised in poverty and the brutal conditions of the frontier. Moving from Kentucky to Indiana, personal tragedy struck early. His mother died when he was only 9. His childhood was defined by hard labor, splitting rails, and farming. Yet the key influence was his stepmother, Sarah Bush Lincoln, who encouraged him to read. Lincoln was an anomaly on the rough frontier. He possessed an obsession with books. With less than a year of formal schooling, he would walk miles to borrow books, reading them repeatedly by firelight. These texts, the Bible, Aesop's fables, and biographies of the Founding Fathers, became the foundation of his moral code and his rhetorical style. This isolation and struggle bred a profound melancholy in him, a deep sadness that would later accompany him in the White House. After a brief, failed military stint and business venture, Lincoln found his calling as an attorney in Illinois. He earned the widely known nickname Honest Abe, known for his clean reputation and his unmatched skill in logical argument. For 2 decades, he became one of the most respected and successful lawyers on the circuit, traveling across Illinois to handle everything from land disputes to murder trials. This experience gave him an intimate understanding of American society and its workings. During this time, he married Mary Todd, a woman from a wealthy Kentucky slave-owning family who possessed great social and political ambition. Their marriage was tempestuous, further complicated by the trauma of losing their young children, grief that deeply scarred both of them. Politically, Lincoln served in the Illinois legislature and the U.S. Congress, always taking a stand against slavery, though initially only seeking to contain it. He held an unshakable belief in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, a phrase he viewed as America's fundamental commitment. By the mid-1850s, the nation's moral crisis over slavery reached a boiling point. The Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision, ruling that black people could not be citizens, and the violence in Bleeding, Kansas, shattered all political compromises. This turmoil forced Lincoln back into frontline politics. He joined the fledgling Republican Party, which was explicitly dedicated to stopping the expansion of slavery. His defining moment came in 1858, when he challenged Stephen Douglas for a Senate seat in a series of 7 now legendary public debates. Lincoln challenged Douglas not just politically, but philosophically. In his famous "A House Divided" speech, he declared that America could not survive half slave and half free forever. He argued that this conflict was a non-negotiable moral fight. Though Lincoln lost the Senate election, the debates successfully elevated him from a regional politician to the preeminent moral voice of the anti-slavery movement in the nation. In the 1860 presidential election, Lincoln's nomination was disastrous for the South. They viewed him as a direct threat to their very way of life following his victory, and even before his inauguration, Confederate states began declaring secession. Lincoln's journey to Washington, D.C. was fraught with danger. He had to slip into the city secretly due to credible assassination threats. When he took office in March 1861, he was president of a shattered country. He immediately implemented his revolutionary strategy. He selected his fiercest political rivals, men like William Seward, Salmon Chase, and Edward Bates, for key cabinet positions. This strategy, famously known as the team of rivals, demonstrated his confidence and genius. He knew that to save the country, he needed the sharpest minds available, even if they looked down on him. The Civil War erupted at Fort Sumter in April 1861. Lincoln quickly realized this was no small skirmish. He faced unbearable pressure. Militarily, the North suffered repeated defeats early on, thanks in part to slow and hesitant Union generals, most notably George McClellan. Amidst the military chaos, Lincoln also had to fight politically. In the North, he felt compelled to suspend habeas corpus, the constitutional right to face a judge, a controversial emergency measure to detain Confederate sympathizers. Personally, he was suffering immensely. His son, Willie, died of typhoid fever at age 11 in 1862. This death devastated both Lincoln and Mary Todd, adding to the burden of grief he carried while making decisions that sent thousands of young men to die on the battlefield. As the war dragged on, Lincoln realized that saving the Union meant destroying slavery. He saw it as both a moral imperative and a necessary military weapon. On January 1, 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This was a brilliantly risky move. Strategically, it crippled the Confederate economy by encouraging slaves to flee and deterred European nations, who were anti-slavery, from intervening on the South's behalf. Morally, it instantly transformed the Civil War from a political conflict into an everlasting struggle for human freedom. Critically, the proclamation allowed over 180,000 black men to join the Union Army. Later that year, following the devastating Battle of Gettysburg, Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address. The speech was only 272 words long, lasting 2 minutes. But its impact was immense. He redefined America, saying the war was a test of whether a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal could long endure. By 1864, Lincoln was in serious trouble. The war had dragged on, and he was nearly defeated in his bid for re-election. Many in the North were calling for a truce. Only a series of decisive Union military victories, particularly Sherman's capture of Atlanta, secured his win. In his second inaugural address, delivered in March 1865, Lincoln revealed the depths of his soul. In the face of certain victory, he did not call for vengeance. Instead, he presented a profound theological and unifying vision, suggesting the war was God's punishment for the sin of slavery, paid for by both North and South. He made his plea for a national healing. With malice toward none, with charity for all. In April 1865, the Union achieved victory. Lincoln had saved the country. Yet his fate was tragic. Just 5 days after the war ended, on April 14, 1865, while watching a play with his wife at Ford's Theater, Lincoln was shot by Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth. He died the next morning. His death triggered an unprecedented wave of national grief. Millions lined the railroad tracks as his body was carried back to Illinois. He became the eternal martyr. Abraham Lincoln's legacy is monumental. He didn't just preserve the United States as one geographical entity, but through his faith in the eternal principle that all men are equal, he transformed it into a moral union. He gave new meaning to freedom and sacrifice, ensuring his place as one of the greatest figures ever to lead a nation. History fans, what element of Lincoln's character, his melancholy, his self-education, or his forgiveness, do you believe was most essential to his leadership? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.